The big clue that helped translation was here, the cartouches, and over decades of hard work, we started to be able to translate hieroglyphics.
An artificial intelligence just found a second message hidden inside the Rosetta Stone, erased 2,000 years ago, invisible to every human who ever studied it. And the researchers who saw it immediately went quiet. This isn't a new translation. It's a discovery of something that was deliberately buried underneath the world's most famous artifact.
Egyptian priests made a point of the fact that they wanted to meet in the ancient capital of Memphis.
A message the priests needed to hide. A message with a countdown encoded in the stars. And it points to our time. A message in triplicate. The year is 1799. Napoleon's soldiers tear down a wall near Rosetta, Egypt, and pull a dark slab from the rubble, 4 feet tall, 1,680 pounds, covered in 3 types of ancient writing. This is the height of Egyptomania. Europeans are obsessed with pyramids, mummies, the lost magic of the pharaohs. But there is one enormous problem. Nobody on Earth can read hieroglyphs. An entire civilization, thousands of years of history, of religion, of science, is completely silent. We can see their temples. We can unwrap their mummies, but we have no idea what they were trying to tell us. The Rosetta Stone looks like a cheat sheet. At the top, the sacred hieroglyphs, the language of the priests. In the middle, Demotic, the everyday cursive used in Egyptian homes and markets. At the bottom, ancient Greek, a language scholars in 1799 can still read.
It was incredibly difficult, and frustratingly, the translations aren't exact. There are differences between each of the 3 texts here.
Same message, 3 languages. Crack the Greek, match it to the hieroglyphs. Suddenly, Egypt speaks again. 2 men race to do it. Thomas Young in England makes the first breakthrough, identifying that some hieroglyphic symbols represent sounds rather than objects. But it's Jean-François Champollion, a young French prodigy who had mastered a dozen ancient languages by age 16 and dedicated his entire life to this single puzzle, who finishes it. In 1822, after years of obsessive work, he cracks the code. Hieroglyphs are a brilliant hybrid system. Some symbols for sounds, some for ideas, some carrying secret layers of meaning only. The priesthood would understand. The discovery is seismic. We read the Book of the Dead. We hear the voices of Tutankhamun and Ramesses the Great. The entire field of Egyptology is built on this one stone. So, what was the grand message? Here's where it gets anticlimactic. The official translation is a bureaucratic decree from 196 BC. The teenage king Ptolemy V gave tax breaks to the temples, forgave some debts, released some prisoners. The priests agreed to build more statues of him and celebrate his birthday. It is, in the bluntest possible terms, a 2,000-year-old royal press release.
It's about a royal cult being granted certain favors, including tax exemption. It is essentially ancient Egyptian tax paperwork.
A very long, very boring political memo. For 200 years, that was the whole story. Case closed, but the story has holes, big ones. And an AI just ripped them open. The AI that saw ghosts. A deep learning neural network is tasked with reanalyzing the stone from scratch. Its method, reflectance transformation, imaging. The stone photographed from hundreds of angles with light hitting it from every possible direction. Think of it like shining a raking light across an old notebook page to read the impression left by whatever was written on the sheet above. The AI generates a complete 3D model capable of detecting surface variations smaller than a human hair. The project was supposed to be simple. Confirm Champollion's work. Archive the stone digitally. Done. The AI's report comes back with one word, anomaly, then another, then another. It doesn't find a minor discrepancy. It finds a second message, deliberately erased, deliberately buried, hidden inside the most studied archaeological artifact in human history for over 2,000 years, and nobody saw it until now. Not a translation, a betrayal. The AI's first bombshell. The 3 texts on the Rosetta Stone are not the same message. We were always told they were identical, word-for-word translations of each other. That assumption is the entire foundation of how Champollion decoded hieroglyphs. Match the Greek. Word for king to a symbol. That symbol means king. But the AI proves this is wrong. They are 3 different versions, each crafted for a different audience, each carrying a different subtext. This wasn't a translation error, it was sophisticated, deliberate propaganda. In 196 BC, Egypt is in crisis. Ptolemy V is a teenager running a fractured government. The country is in a brutal civil war. The only institution with real power is the ancient priesthood. They control the temples, the grain, the loyalty of the people. Ptolemy needs them. So, the decree is a political deal, but the priests are playing a far more dangerous game. The Greek text at the bottom is cold and administrative, legalistic language for government officials about tax exemptions and amnesty. It frames Ptolemy as a rational modern ruler, logic, order, money. The Demotic text in the middle warms up. Written for the common people, it's patriotic and emotional. The foreign Greek king framed as a protector of the Egyptian homeland. But the hieroglyphic text at the top is where everything changes. By 196 BC, hieroglyphs are already ancient, a sacred ceremonial language most people couldn't read, including virtually all Greek officials.
The main part of the text really is about giving honors to the king. So the Egyptian priests list a number of honors that they want to give to the king in a way to compare him with a god.
A secret code used to speak directly to the gods, and the AI's analysis shows this version reads nothing like the others. It doesn't call Ptolemy a king. It calls him the living image of God, the son of Ra, the avenger of his father, the chosen of Horus. Where the other texts discuss tax breaks, this one places the king inside the cosmic battle between order, Ma'at, and chaos, Isfet. For 200 years, scholars shrugged this off. That's just how Egyptians wrote, religious, poetic, metaphorical. But the AI says no. The patterns are too specific, too deliberate. The priests aren't being poetic. They're using the sacred text their rulers can't read to conduct a completely separate conversation. The AI calls this visual theology. Every symbol carries a second layer of meaning communicated through angle, depth, and orientation invisible to the uninitiated. A bird carved facing left means one thing. The same bird facing right, toward the sacred temple, means something else entirely. A snake symbol, cut with a deeper chisel stroke, doesn't mean snake. It means danger, the void. To a Greek official, the hieroglyphic section looks like ornate religious decoration. To an initiated priest, it's a completely different document. The priests were forced to write this decree, but they used the one language their rulers couldn't read to hide a message of their own. A message they were terrified of, one they needed to survive. If this is the kind of discovery that keeps you up at night, hit subscribe. We go this deep every single week. The Phantom Text. Here's where the AI stops analyzing meaning and starts analyzing the physical stone itself. It maps every tool mark, every microfracture, every erosion pattern across the entire surface. And it finds something no human noticed in 200 years of study. The chisel marks on the Greek and Demotic sections at the bottom are consistent, shallow, quick, matching the carving style of other Ptolemaic-era documents. Standard work from that period. The hieroglyphic section at the top is completely different. The tool marks are broader, the cuts are deeper. The carving style belongs to a much older period, hundreds of years older. And the erosion on the hieroglyphic section, despite sitting higher on the stone where erosion should be less severe, is significantly older than the erosion on the Greek text below. The conclusion, this stone was not carved all at once in 196 BC.
The decree would have been sent around the country, and the text tells us that it has to be written in stone in sacred writing, which is hieroglyphs, native writing, which is the Demotic that we see in the middle.
The priests didn't grab a blank slab. They went into a ruined temple. They found a much older sacred monument, a stele from Egypt's golden age, that already had a message carved into it. They erased it, polished it down, chipped and smoothed the surface until it looked blank to the naked eye. Then they carved Ptolemy's administrative decree right over the top. But the erasure wasn't perfect. To a human eye, the surface looks clean. To an AI detecting variations smaller than a human hair, the original text is still there. Ghost impressions of the erased symbols pressed beneath the new ones, like the indent of handwriting left in the page below. The AI filters out the new hieroglyphs, the noise, and amplifies the old ones underneath, the signal. The fragments that come back are not a royal decree. They are not a tax record. They are not a guide to the afterlife. The AI reconstructs the translated fragments, and they read, "The sky serpent will devour, the sun will blacken, the 5 lands will tremble, and the great order will unravel." Sit with that for a second. This is the message the priests found. This is what they chose to preserve at enormous personal risk, hidden beneath a political document their king would never question, encoded in a sacred language. He couldn't read, not a hymn, not a blessing, not a prayer for the dead. A warning about the sky going dark, the earth shaking, and civilization. The great order they had spent centuries building and defending, coming apart. This is the emotional center of what the AI found. Everything else, the propaganda, the 3-text divergence, the tool marks, the reused stone, all of it exists in service of one thing: getting this message to survive, to reach whoever could eventually read it. That message sat in the British Museum. Millions of tourists photographed it. Generations of scholars translated around it, and not one of them saw what was underneath, until a machine looked at the stone the way no human ever could, decoding the final warning. The AI cross-references the ghost text against thousands of Egyptian papyri and inscriptions in its database. The sky serpent has a name, Apep. In Egyptian cosmology, Apep is the ultimate embodiment of chaos, a serpent, of incomprehensible size said to dwell in the eternal darkness beyond the visible world. Every single night, the sun god Ra battles Apep as he sails his boat through the underworld. If Ra ever loses, Apep swallows the sun. Permanent darkness, permanent cold, the end of everything. The Egyptians held nightly rituals to help Ra win. They prayed. They recited incantations. They drew protective symbols. This was not metaphor to them. This was existential terror. But the ghost text goes further than mythology. Buried within the erased symbols are precise astronomical charts, not maps of the ancient sky, but predictive ones. Star alignments configured to describe a future position of the heavens. The AI cross-references these charts against NASA's astronomical database, tracking the precession of the equinoxes and the orbital mechanics of known celestial bodies. And the result is what has researchers losing sleep. The star alignments don't point to a date in the past. They point to our era. The researchers working with this data believe the sky serpent is not a literal creature. It's a description, a cosmological metaphor for a cyclical, recurring event arriving from deep space. A massive long-period comet, a debris field, a cloud of interstellar material our solar system passes through on a predictable cycle. The Egyptians weren't the only ones who recorded it. The Norse had Ragnarok, the wolf that swallows the sun. The Aztecs had their 5 suns. Each world age ended by catastrophe from the sky. The Maya built their long count calendar around the end of a world age. 3 civilizations, 3 continents, 3 independent records of the same recurring catastrophe. What if they weren't inventing mythology? What if they were all witnessing the same thing from different points in the cycle and doing the only thing they knew how to do? Writing it down, hiding it where it might survive. The priests of 196 BC didn't write this prophecy. They found it, already ancient in their time, carved into a stone from an even earlier period of Egyptian history. They were the custodians of a warning that came from deeper in the past than even they could fully see. And faced with a foreign ruler who would have called it treason, they did the only thing they could. They hid it beneath a boring tax document. They coded a reference to it in the one language their rulers couldn't read. They built the world's most sophisticated time capsule inside the world's most boring memo. And they waited for someone, anyone, to be able to see what they'd hidden. That took 2,220 years, and it took a machine. Why are they hiding the truth? If you think this ends with a press conference and a triumphant journal publication, you don't know how academia works. When the private lab shares its findings with major universities and the British Museum, the reaction isn't excitement. The findings aren't published. Access to the 3D imaging data is restricted almost. Immediately, conservation concerns cited as justification. The scientific debate that should happen in public is driven underground, and then the emails leak. On one side, traditional Egyptologists furious. They've spent careers building on Champollion's translation. They call the AI's findings digital pareidolia, seeing faces in clouds, and accuse the researchers of trusting a pattern-matching machine with no understanding of cultural nuance. One senior professor allegedly calls the report irresponsible, sensationalist digital garbage. On the other side, computational archaeologists firing back with the raw data. The tool marks are different. The erosion ages don't match. The three texts are measurably not identical. A young researcher at the lab is reportedly terminated for trying to leak the full findings to the press. His stated reason: the public has a right to know. Meanwhile, the political fight over the stone's ownership has become something far more urgent than a slow diplomatic argument. Egyptian officials escalate their demands for the stone's immediate return. Leaked correspondence shows scholars in Cairo have seen the AI report. They believe only the cultural heirs of the original priests can properly interpret what the warning actually means, and what, if anything, can be done about it. The dominoes are already falling. If the Rosetta Stone is not what we thought it was, every translation built on Champollion's foundational work becomes suspect. The Ebers Papyrus, our primary source for ancient Egyptian medicine. What else is coded within it? The Book of the Dead. Are those passages guides to the afterlife, or instructions for surviving something catastrophic on a civilizational scale? The Turin King list, the pyramid texts, the coffin texts. Every major hieroglyphic document was translated using the same foundational key. And if the key is wrong, the AI is now being pointed at every major undeciphered text in existence. The Voynich manuscript, the Linear A tablets of Crete, the Rongorongo script of Easter Island. A race is on, not just to read the past, but to find out whether the past was trying to warn the future, and whether we have any time left to act on it. A warning or a glitch? Here's the question nobody wants to ask. What if the AI is wrong? The machine is extraordinarily powerful. It detects what human eyes can't. It cross-references what human minds can't hold. But it is not human. It doesn't know that a master priest carving sacred images uses different tools with different pressure than a tired apprentice finishing the Greek legal text at the end of a long day. It doesn't know that a carver who misspells a pharaoh's name sands it down and recarves it, leaving a ghost mark that has nothing to do with prophecy and everything to do with being human and making mistakes. The AI sees a 0.04% deviation in carving depth and calls it suppression. A historian calls it a Monday. And here's the deeper problem. The AI was trained on data assembled by humans. Humans who have absorbed every doomsday story, every ancient mystery, every conspiracy our culture has ever produced. When it finds a faint erased mark beneath an astronomical symbol next to a serpent reference, does it discover a cosmic warning, or does it construct the most dramatically coherent, emotionally satisfying narrative available? Because that's what it learned to do from the people who built it. We are ready to throw out 2 centuries of careful human scholarship, of linguistics, of archaeology, of comparative mythology, because a machine found a pattern. We're ready to believe in a cosmic countdown because an algorithm told us to. But we have never once stopped to ask who wrote the algorithm, what assumptions were baked into its training, whether it was optimized for accuracy or for the discovery of the extraordinary. This may be the real terrifying message buried inside the Rosetta Stone. Not that the priests left us a warning, but that we built a machine powerful enough to rewrite our entire understanding of history. And we have no reliable way to know whether what it's telling us is true or whether it's simply generating the most compelling possible story from the available noise. We unlocked the ancient world with a human key, Champollion's brilliant, flawed, irreplaceable genius. Now, we hold a new key made by something that is not human. It sees further, it remembers more, it never gets tired and never gets distracted. And the door it opens leads either to the most important discovery in the history of our species, or to a digital ghost story we told ourselves. The line between ancient history and credible fiction has just been erased by a machine. And somewhere in the British Museum, behind bulletproof glass, the stone sits in silence. The same silence it has kept for over 2,000 years. waiting, still keeping its secrets. Or maybe, finally, giving. Why them up? If the Rosetta Stone was hiding a message for 2,000 years, what else are we still misreading? Drop your theory in the comments. Subscribe if you want to keep digging. And click here, because what they found hidden inside, next video title, might be even harder to explain.